With this new update, you will see that service planning and serving are still options on the left navigation. However, service planning is now a single item. In the past, it had 3 sub-items, but those have been combined. If you select service planning, you will see tabs along the top for plans, songs, and settings. Previously, there was a 3rd sub-menu item named scheduling, which has been removed. Previously, schedules could be standalone or part of a service plan, but that has been removed. All volunteer schedules are now part of a service plan. There is this new Add New button, and when selected, the first option that you see is Type. In the previous system, Type didn't really have a meaning, but now it does have a meaning, and the type is very important. There is subtext under the drop-down field that indicates how to edit service types. Since there are many features with this option, it has been put on a different screen, which you can go to by selecting Service Planning and Settings. When that option is selected, you will see all the service types that are available. For new customers, there will automatically be a type titled Worship Service, which will be visible under the Settings tab within Service Planning. To create a new type, you will select the Add Type button. The first section, General, you have name, description, and frequency. Frequency is important because it will allow you to create multiple service plans at one time and then read the frequency as to how to generate the date for each of these service plans. Worship services are typically weekly, which is the default. However, you can change the default. Next, you have teams. Now, plans can only be associated with service types. So when you create a plan, you create a service type, and the service type will indicate which teams will participate in that service. For this scenario, we will select production, guest services, support, and worship. So every time I create a plan of type worship service, these teams will be selected by default. The pop-up will show all groups in the system with the volunteer type serving team. It will show all serving teams on the left-hand side, but you are not limited to those serving teams. You can schedule others as well. I'll add a small group, which is not a serving team. The next section is templates, which we will discuss later. And the last is attachments, which are any attachments you want to add to the service type template. And you can see the various files or links that you can add to each of these service types. For the templates, let me go ahead and open up this existing service type, worship service. So once you create a service type, you will have the option to create a template. And a template is essentially a plan template. For demonstration, I'll show you the one that's created here. As you can see, this looks like a service plan, but it is a service type template. So when you create plans of this specific type, worship service, this is the default service type template that will be auto-created. And you can import this template into each plan that you are creating. Here you can create the various elements that go along with each service. If you select the serving tab, this is where you can indicate serving teams. So whenever I create a plan of type worship service, it will automatically add this order of service, and it will automatically add these 2 serving teams as well. In this scenario, I scheduled 2 volunteers, so it will automatically add these 2 volunteers to every worship plan as well, but this is adjustable. If this is the very first time creating a plan or setting up a template, this is what you will see. The tip at the bottom reads that no teams have been assigned to this plan, and to get started, check the Show Hidden Teams and Positions options above. Now you'll see every team that can be scheduled for this type, along with every active position for that team. Again, these are teams that are part of the type that you're editing and not all of the serving teams within your organization. Now I can start to build out my volunteer schedule by hovering over the position that is needed and selecting the green plus icon. And then you can add the number of positions you need for each. Now, if you uncheck the Show Hidden Teams and Positions, you will see the teams and the positions that are needed for this service type template. Keep in mind, this is still the template. Notice there is no save button. Everything will be saved immediately as a task is performed. Under the Actions button, which is slightly hidden at the top right, you can do things like import a template into this template, as well as you can copy this template. If you choose to import a template, you can specify which options you'd like to import when importing that template. The last option is Copy Template. When this is selected, you can do multiple things, like copy it to a new plan or to a new template. The final option is deleting the template altogether. To create a new plan, you can select Add New, or you can select New Service Plan. And the first question it will ask is which type of plan you would like to create. The next option is Copy Times From. And since this is the first time you are creating a plan, the system doesn't yet know which times you are copying a service from. So for the very first plan, you can select None, No Times. The next question is how many do you want to create? It's recommended that for the first time, you only select one. We will create one for now. Then you see the option for campus. If you are on a plan that does not have campuses or you do not have multiple campuses in your system, this will not be an option for you. Then below you will see the preview. So you're creating one plan with no dates, and you can choose which template to use. I will pick General, which is the template within the service type that we showed you earlier. As a reminder, I will go under Settings. I pick the worship service, and there are templates that are a part of that type. And here you see General, which is this order of service and these specific serving teams. And these will be added to this plan that I am creating here on the screen. Now I have an actual service plan, and it applied the template from the service type that I chose. And the name of the service plans are based upon the date and the service type that was selected. You will notice that attachments have already been added to this plan, and this is because of the template. If I toggle back between the service plan template that I created, you will see the order of service matches. As well, if you look at the serving tab on the template, you will see that that also matches the serving plan. The template determines the order of service, as well as the serving team and needs when creating the plan. This allows you to create these plans much faster. Managing a service type template and a service plan are very similar to each other. One major difference that you will see is that plans have dates and times, whereas templates do not. Templates are used to create plans, but they themselves do not occur at a particular time. Now let's go back to the plan. You see there are no dates, so we will add times. There are 3 time types that come with the system: service, rehearsal, and other. Additional can be created by selecting the cog button. After you select the type, you can then select the date and a time. A plan can occur across multiple dates and times. Let's create a plan with a Wednesday rehearsal and a Saturday and Sunday service time. After I create my first time, I then select the assigned teams for those times. I'll leave this empty for now and explain this later because volunteers may not serve at all times that you have for your plan. Here you can see that the services take place on Saturday and Sunday, and the rehearsal takes place on Wednesday. Now, if you look at the auto-generated name for the plan, it has changed based upon the date. Notice it generates the plan name based upon the services, not the rehearsal. Now I'll schedule some volunteers. I'll click on the greeter. A pop-up will appear showing me the number of volunteers in the system for that group and position. Currently, for greeter, there's only one. If I schedule this person, you will see that the number of volunteers needed decrements by 1. The button is also updated so that you know how many you are scheduling. The first option is to see all the team members within the system, but I can schedule anyone within the system to serve, located under the Guest tab. Now, when you are scheduling guests, you can also choose to add them to the team roster. I will go ahead and add Annie and James to the volunteer schedule. When I select Add Volunteer Now, those two names appeared grayed out because they are already on the schedule for the guest services team. Notice on the left of an individual's name is a color bar that is currently gray. This indicates a person's status. If you click on the name and then select Statuses near the top, it will show you the different options, indicating whether or not someone has been contacted, they've accepted, or declined. Now take a look at the middle section where it reads times. When you schedule a volunteer, they may not be required to attend all times on the service plan. For instance, in my scenario, a rehearsal is on Wednesday, and I can make it to where only the worship team is required to attend the rehearsal. If you schedule a volunteer and do not associate them with times, then the times will be unselected. Let's remove both of these volunteers. Now I'll select the service time and indicate which volunteers need to be present at those service times. Same thing for Sunday's time. And now see, for rehearsal, it will be different. Only the worship team is required to attend. When you schedule a greeter, you see that James only has 2 service times. If I click on that, you will see rehearsal is unchecked. However, if I schedule a worship team member, you will see that 3 times are checked because his team is required to go to the rehearsal. Now, when scheduling people, you can also drag them from one team to another so that they can serve in multiple spots. When you do this, the system will warn you of a conflict. In this scenario, he is scheduled for both greeter and also guitar player. If you open up that assignment, you'll also see conflict at the bottom. The system will also look for other plans that may be occurring at the same time and the same date. To remove a volunteer position, all you need to do is remove the needs down to 0 by selecting the minus button. To add a position back, you can select Show Hidden Teams, find the position, and then add it back. Or select the cog menu, then select Needed Positions, and it will show all the positions of this group. I will quickly schedule some other people for this service. So here's the schedule that I created. At the top, you will see a summary of how many people are on this team. I have 8 people, and they are uncontacted at this point. Here you can remove an entire team, but you also have the option to just remove an assignment. Clearing assignments will remove all volunteers in this particular team. You can also choose to reset statuses. If someone accepts, you can reset that to uncontacted. The last option under the cog menu is to send an email to everyone on the team. By default, it will auto-select that specific team and those who have been non-contacted. but you can modify this as needed. After you have scheduled your volunteers, you can click on the Send Email button to notify them. After you do that, it will bring up a pop-up which will allow you to see everyone who will be contacted. 7 have been selected, but 8 and 9 do not have an email. They appear on the list so that you can see that they do not have an email. In this list, you will also see their assignment. You can also remove names from the list as well. Here's the default subject line and default message. You can also send this request as a text message. For the email, you can modify the body copy. However, it will not translate that edited copy to the text. You cannot add people who are not associated with this service plan. You can only email scheduled volunteers. After I sent the assignment, you will notice that Beth's assignment went to yellow because she has been contacted, which means pending. Once the volunteer request emails have been sent, those volunteers now have access to the service plan. Here's an example of the email that is received by the volunteers. You see there are 2 options. You can either view the plan or respond. If a volunteer selects View Plan, it will take them directly to the software. For that option, a login is required. The volunteer is able to see everyone else who is serving on a particular service plan. This includes other teams serving on that same day for that same plan. Note the yellow box at the top right. The volunteer is also able to accept the assignment directly from the service plan. The options are accept, replace, swap, or decline. If within the request email the volunteer selects respond, then they are able to respond to the request without logging into the software, which you can see on this screen. Again, a volunteer can accept, replace, swap, or decline, and then submit the response by clicking on the button at the bottom. You can also send multiple requests at one time. Here's a quick example. I will assign Beth with multiple serving opportunities. You now see that within the request email, multiple assignments are included within one email. At this point, if the volunteer clicks on the respond button, they will see all 3 serving requests. The volunteer can respond to the requests all at once. For the third option, I chose replace. At this point, I'm shown other volunteers within my particular team that serve in the same position. And in this example, it's James and Laura who are not scheduled for the service. I can select which ones I'd like to send the request to and provide a message. If a volunteer chooses swap, that's different. That option will look for people who are on a schedule at a different date, particularly volunteers who serve in the same position. Essentially, you can swap your weekend with another volunteer's weekend. For swapping, you are swapping with another volunteer. Replacing means that a volunteer not scheduled is willing to replace you. For example, I will submit the request asking for James to replace me for this particular service in this particular position. You see that the system shows that there is a pending replacement request. You can also cancel the request. The volunteer can always access this from the email that they received. Let's talk about the communication trail. In this scenario, when Beth declined, the message went to Lois. The reason why is because Lois is the group admin for that volunteer team. Technically, it went to both Cheryl and Lois because both are group admins. Note, if there is no admin of a group, no one gets a denied or confirmed email. You can see on the schedule that Beth is under drums with a red mark to the left and a strike through her name because she declined. And if you click on her name, you can see the reason for the decline. For the schedule that was accepted, that message went to James, who is the admin of that group. We also sent a replacement request And that too went to James, just for example. You can see the email, "Hi James, Beth is looking for someone to serve in their place for an upcoming service," with the comments below. The message also includes service details, date, and requirement. James can either accept it or say, "Sorry, I can't." Now let's say James does accept the request and selects the "I'll do it" button. You see that he receives a confirmation message thanking him for accepting the position. James will also receive a confirmation email thanking him for replacing Beth. Now James can also make changes. He can still make a change on that request that he just accepted. And then the other email went out to Beth, letting her know that James has agreed to serve in her place. Now, if no one accepts her offer for replacement, then she'll receive an email saying that, "Sorry, but no one was able to replace you." On the volunteer's home screen, they can see their upcoming serving opportunities on the right under upcoming serving. The volunteer will need to select the opportunity and then go to the plan to accept the volunteer request. As far as the service plan itself, previously there was an Actions Edit button that has been removed. You can make edits directly to the plan itself. And the changes that you make are saved immediately. To update the plan name, you need to click on it. The button to the right of the service plan title allows you to toggle whether the plan is private or public. From the Actions button, top right, you can still import a template, copy plan, download songbook, multi-plan grid, and delete. You can import a template directly into the plan. Let's say I wanted to delete the current order of service. I can import the order of service from the template general. Keep in mind, in your service plan templates, you are building an order of service and volunteer teams. You also have the option to copy a plan. With this option, you are able to copy a plan into a template. This is useful if you build the plan first and then want to save it as an ongoing template to be used later. I will call this one my new fantastic template. And I can decide which options I'd like to copy over. Now I can use this template for new plans. You can also copy a plan into a series of new plans. With a plan existing in the system, now when I go to Add New, it will automatically choose to copy times from the latest plan and use that as the template for the times. It shows me the plan that it will create. If I hover over that plan, I can see the service times and other times. I can then choose the template. Remember, the template has the template for the order of service and the volunteer teams. And I can also create up to 12 plans when selecting the drop-down next to how many. The reason it is scheduling weekly plans is because the service type is set to weekly, found in Service Planning Settings. When creating plans in bulk, you can choose between different templates. For example, if you have a special service with special service times for one plan. For example, Easter. This lock here lets me change templates all at once. Select lock and then change all of the templates. Unselect lock and you can change them individually. I will create a few plans here. I'm doing this by week, but there are other options. If you edit the service type, you can see the frequency. Even though I'm creating new plans from a new plan template, I am copying times from March 4-5. So you see the plans reflect the same times. I'm now taken to the very next plan. The serving tab is as expected. I can jump to the next plan, and the next plan, and so on. I'd now like to highlight a few preferences. If you select your name in the top right, and then select Serving Availability. Preferences is the first tab, and Blockout Dates is the second tab. It's now a single drop-down based upon position. The default is as often as needed, but if you select the drop-down, you have other options. For example, I'll choose every other week for both of my volunteer positions. Now I'll add myself to a few plans to show you the options. There are two possibilities when you look at these icons. The first is the yellow exclamation point. This shows a conflict. And the info icon in blue is a preference. It's letting the scheduler know that this person does not want to serve because they had already served the week prior. You can still schedule this volunteer and ignore their preference, but it is highlighted in the software for you. If you schedule the person and then choose to edit the assignment, you will be hit with a warning indicating that this person prefers not to serve at this particular time. Now let's look at blockout dates. If you try to schedule a volunteer with blockout dates, it will show them as unavailable. Preference and conflicts you can override. Unavailable, you cannot schedule them. Note the preference column, which indicates that this serving position is the volunteer's second choice. This volunteer serves on both keyboard and drums, but keyboards is the second choice. If you select drums, you'll see that this is their first preference. You also have a column to see the last time a particular volunteer was scheduled. After you have multiple service plans created, you may want to look at them together simultaneously in an organized fashion. You can do that with a multi-plan grid. Select the plans you'd like to view, then select the drop-down and choose multi-plan grid. Note that the top row and the first column are frozen, meaning you can scroll up and down or left to right, and the header as well as the first column will stay in place. That way you're always aware of what each intersection is. Almost everything that can be accomplished on a single plan view can be done within the multi-grid plan view. Select the cog icon to import a template, copy a plan, hide a plan. You can also change the image. If you click on the name, it opens that plan in another screen. You can edit the plan details by clicking on them. You can see the service times, and if you click on that time, you can edit those. To delete a time, you need to click on it and then select the delete button. And to add a time, you'll click on the cog menu. Everything in dark gray can be collapsed. The order of service is editable as well. You also have drag and drop functionality in the multi-plan grid view. The drag and drop functionality works for the serving teams as well. You can add volunteers by clicking on the Add Volunteer. To increase the need, you just click on the plus sign. You can also decrease all the way down to 0, and then it will go away. To get that position back, click on the cog menu, which is the same cog menu as seen in the schedule. Click on needed positions to add that position back to the schedule. Options from the global serving team view are the same as the options on the actions drop-down button within the service plan. Show all positions will show all positions for all of the volunteer teams. If you want to add an entire team that's not being shown currently, select the serving cog menu, show all positions, and that will show all the positions that are not currently on the plan, like this support position here. The icon to the left of the cog will allow you to email volunteers for that specific plan on that specific date. If you want to email all of the volunteers for all of the plans currently being shown, you would select Grid Actions at the top left, Send Email. It will default to all plans, all teams, and statuses that are non-contacted. Here you see a pop-up of emails that will be sent. In this scenario, I had only scheduled one person. Press Send to send the requests. This person was emailed for all 4 plans, as you can see here. You can respond to all 4 weeks as well. These requests will show up within the software under the person's profile, where you can click on them and respond within the software also. Let's go back to the multi-grid view. I'll just select 2 this time. From this view, I can add additional plans to this grid. If I want to see the plan after March 25th, I just select the arrow that reads Load Next Plan. As well, I can add the plan before March 18th. And I can keep loading plans until there are no more to load. In that case, the arrows will disappear. You can only load up to 10 services. You can remove a plan from the grid by clicking on the icon and selecting Hide Plan. This will hide the plan. It will not delete the plan. The system will allow you to make volunteer positions visible so that your congregation can self-select which volunteer opportunity and time works best for their schedule. Within a particular service plan, select the Serving tab. From there, select Settings in the sub-menu. The top portion of Settings manages the notifications. The bottom portion, labeled Signing Up, controls whether people can sign up to serve for various needed positions on this particular service plan. By default, every position is set to only admins can schedule volunteers, but this can be changed. For example, let's say we want to make the position greeter available for volunteers to sign themselves up. Select the drop-down next to greeters to change the option. These options can be changed for the different volunteer positions that you have. Make sure to select Save Settings. With these options in place, if you select Serving from the left navigation, these volunteer positions will be visible. You can see drums, 2 positions are needed, and it shows the dates that are required to serve. And you also see the position and requirements for serving as a greeter. If a church member signs up for these positions, they will not be added to that particular group. They will be set as a guest volunteer for that position. When someone chooses to sign up, you will receive a confirmation message. After you confirm, you will see a Scheduled button. And the serving opportunity also appears on the homepage. At this point, I can also go to the service plan and see other volunteers who have been scheduled to serve. These serving opportunities can also be filtered. One thing to note, if you have opened up a volunteer position for only group members and a potential volunteer hovers over the positions section of the volunteering opportunity, they will see a list of other volunteers within their group who have already signed up to serve for this particular plan. That visibility is only allowed if someone is a part of that group.